I wanted to ask you about an experience that many of you know. About 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with leukemia, and I had a series of events and so on. And there's a gentleman on the planet living in Brazil, in Abidjan. His name goes by the name John of God in English. And now, who am I to ask you whether entities can enter into somebody else's body?
By the results of what you experienced.
Yeah, but I had this most amazing experience with John of God.
Because like Jesus, his vibration of well-being was dominant. And because your expectation didn't prevent it, in that alignment, you experienced that.
So, I haven't been back to check blood levels or anything like that because I just go by how I feel, and I feel fine. So, it's. But so many things changed in it. But the major change after having this healing experience with this man who has treated some 40 million people over the last 40 years or so, was that a week after the experience, two of my children were with me on Maui. And when I walked out of the room, and I looked at they just looked totally different to me than they ever had before. They just looked like pure.
You were looking at them through the eyes
love.
of Source.
Yeah. And I was weeping. I put my arms around my daughter and told her how beautiful she is. I was holding my son. I looked at the ocean. It looked like a sea of love. I looked at the palm trees there.
Alignment. Influenced to alignment.
Yeah, it was so powerful. And what I think, my 71st birthday was a couple of weeks later, and I woke up that morning, my birthday, I was in San Francisco, and I was making a film about my father, about forgiveness and so on, called My Greatest Teacher. And all I wanted to do that day, and I never had a birthday like this, and I've never forgotten it, I went downstairs and I had a couple of $1,000s with me, and I went down and got $50 bills. A couple of $1,000s with them. And I went out to Union Square, and all I did all day long, from 7 o'clock in the morning until about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, was just embrace homeless people, little ladies who were looking for plastic water bottles to take back, and people didn't smell very good, and people who were, it was like, and I was just in this state of bliss. It was such a pure love. All I wanted to do was give. I just wanted to give. I just wanted to serve, and that impacted me so much that it's why I wear love on my shirt. It's why I'm writing about divine love. It's why I'm here speaking to you, who teaches us about something called divine love, and what a thrill it is for me to just be here in your presence. But it was all, and what it seemed to me was happened is, like, when you're told that you have something like leukemia, there is fear associated with it. Not fear of dying so much, but just this cancer. It's that word, cancer of the blood, and and there's so much of it in our society, so much of it. And I have a dear friend, her name's Anita Moorjani, who's written a book about her near-death experience called Dying to Be Me. And she talked about her cancer and how serious it was and how she was able to come back from it. And she said, it's just all fear. It's just all fear. It felt like the entities that came to me through John of God came in and took the fear, whatever that fear was related to that, and just removed it and replaced it with love. Is that?
We would say it a little differently than the removal part. No. The emphasis on the love part, yes. Mm-hmm. So that the vibration of well-being was dominant. It's an interesting subject because everyone who is here in a physical body understands that they are going to make a transition. And yet it's seen by most humans as an inappropriate thing to do. So right away, if some path of least resistance looks like it's taken you out, then you have some determination to make about how you feel about being here. In other words, we were talking earlier about the contrast. You know what you don't want, you know what you do want. And soon there can be a pretty wide gap there. But when you close that gap, it's a really wonderful rush So we want to put healing in the category of everything else that we've been talking about and call it alignment. But we also want to say that there's an awful lot of true alignment that happens in what you call the unwanted death experience, you see. And so what it comes down to is you and your physical body just making a statement of what you intend. Because there is a trajectory, but you get to decide. As long as you're having fun and having meaningful experiences and are enjoying the way life is juxtapositioning you with other things, then there is no reason that you cannot continue to sift through the contrast and give birth to new intentions, and Source will support you in all of that, no matter what, you see. It really is your choice. And most, when they think of some of these illnesses, feel that they are without choice. That's why you feel fear, is because fear is the opposite of the way Source feels about you in that situation, you see. Fear is just the way you feel when you have a different opinion than the way Source feels. So, what did John of God do for you? Because you, like everyone else, you have access to that energy stream. You did not need an intermediary to flow stronger energy at you. But what he did, he caused you to focus in a way where you had stronger expectation. In other words, he soothed the vibration of misalignment and allowed the vibration of alignment.
He allowed, say that? That was so beautiful.
You, by your attention upon him, found a way of allowing the energy that was there for you all along to be received by you. He's not receiving the energy and asserting it to you. You don't need someone to assert healing energy. You're all tapped in. But he helped you in the expectation phase. He, by virtue of what you know for him to do, what you've heard about him doing, caused your expectation to shift so that the fear was not there. And in the absence of the fear caused by your focusing upon him, then the healing took place.
But the healing was such a feeling of love, such a feeling of, it's
alignment, clarity. Use the word clarity. That's the best word to describe alignment. Clarity, knowing, unquestioning. Yeah?
Yeah, it's one of the, and I can see clearly now.
Yeah.
It's one of the signature moments in my life.
Well, because it felt like the stakes were higher. But the stakes are never high. In other words, you can be or do or have anything that you want. Source always has your back. It's just that sometimes when the stakes feel higher, you align more deliberately.
But it created in me a sense of just wanting to serve, to get my ego out of this.
Well, you can't not serve. When you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on, you act like a satellite dish, so that, in other words, it's what we were talking about earlier. People are zigging and zagging and zigging and zagging, and if you're tuned in and not, and tuned in and not, and tuned in and not, they don't have as much opportunity to rendezvous with you. But when you're consistently there, then more of them can rendezvous with you, you see. And the most interesting thing about that is you cannot serve others unless you have served yourself. Because if you're not tuned into that energy, you don't have anything to give anyone.
It seems, Abraham, that there's so much cancer and there's so much fear. There's so much disease in our culture, particularly in America, and there's so much fear. And I don't mean fear in the sense of being afraid of.
Let's just call it momentum for a while.
Okay.
Just think of it as momentum, and then just watch what's going on around you, and notice the momentum, the perpetuation of momentum. But also acknowledge that in that knowing what you don't want, there's also a perpetuation of the solution. So even though the society is, for the most part, more in sync on the lower discs with the problem than they are the solution is in the process of becoming. And more like you will find alignment with it, you see.
And so if we can get this fear out of our
but you have to
this
think about
misalignment out. That you think the cancer rates will go down?
For sure. But you found a really good way of saying that right away. You said if we can get the fear out of it, and then you stopped yourself and said the fear is the result of the misalignment. And so if we can direct our thoughts more upon what we want and not so much upon what we don't want. But that's going to require a lot of people being willing to reach for better feeling frequencies. And you know what we notice about so many of you? Until the stakes are really high, most of you are willing to put up with the ornery disc. You see, so much that you're living that is such a departure from what you really want isn't because you're a terrible person. It isn't because you've done terrible things. It's because you're chronically holding yourself away from the vibration of alignment that is natural to you. And so just a little bit of attention to the way you feel and a determination to feel better more of the time, it'll take care of that.